director cuts, deleted scenes, uncut versions, and so on. No matter what the film it may be, there's always going to be scenes and shots left on the cutting room floor. This is even true with 3-hour epics and even 2-parter films. But every now and then we get alternate cuts of these films, but for some we don't. One good example of this has to be when the director of the film, J.A. Bayona, was questioned about a possible director's cut for the film, he stated that the final cut was indeed the director's cut. And with his reasoning, he's both right and wrong about his statement. For one, yes, it is down to the director to pick out what scenes would get cut and which scenes would stay in the film, but wrong with the fact that the directors have to cut the film for the sake of runtime. And this rings true with a lot of movies, not only made in North America, but on an international level. But enough of the logistics and analytics, this video is not on that. Today I wanted to focus on a director's cut that never came to be, despite it being mentioned a couple times before, but nothing came of it. And you already know what I'm talking about. I mean, you've seen the title of the video, so just,
when your co-star is hundreds of feet tall. That's exactly what Bryan Cranston has got to do in the new Godzilla movie. Godzilla's
Alright, enough of that rerun footage. For the longest time, Godzilla 2014 has been a film surrounded in mystery, with a lot of people, including myself, asking about the director's cut. Eagle-eyed fans who revisited trailers and TV spots will recognize scenes and shots that are missing in the final film. So, to celebrate the 6th year anniversary of Godzilla 2014, we'll be exploring the shots and scenes that never made it to the final film. This is the Godzilla's director's cut we never got. So you're probably thinking I'm crazy to make such a claim, that this version of the film isn't real, because if it were, we would have gotten it by now, right? Despite the footage I'm about to show you guys, the director's cut for the film was mentioned by a legendary executive and one of the actors for the film. Of course, I'm talking about ex-CEO of Legendary Pictures, Thomas Tull, in an interview with Toho Kingdom's Chris son of a bitch. Chris asked Thomas about an extended cut of the film, and Thomas replied with, "Yes." So, what happened? Well, there's a lot of theories and speculations as to why Warner and Legendary never released the uncut version of the film, and some of the theories are pretty wild, from the studio losing interest in the 2014 film to literally losing the film completely. But there are a few things that we know that are probably the major cause of the director's cut never being released, and it's probably due to two people: Thomas Tull and the director himself, Gareth Edwards. We'll start with Tull. Notice how I said ex-CEO of Legendary Pictures? Well, as of 2017, Thomas Tull resigned as chairman due to growing pressure from the Chinese company Dalian Wanda Group, which had bought Legendary Pictures on January 11, 2016. It is very possible due to this sudden change of power, Wanda Group thought it was more important to focus on new releases rather than focusing on the old. The next person in line is Gareth Edwards. After completing Godzilla 2014, Gareth was taken under Disney to direct a new Star Wars film. This held him back from the Monsterverse for a bit, as the original plan was for Gareth himself to direct a trilogy of Godzilla films, before plans changed, that is. After Rogue One, Gareth got up from his directing chair to take a break from large-scale Hollywood budget movies, in an amicable split with the studio to work on smaller-scale projects, and the rest is history. Now let's get on to the stuff we missed. So a few things before we start. I won't be including the Comic-Con teaser footage or the alternate scenes in this video. I've made the argument that the footage shown in the teaser was essentially made as a proof of concept similar to the Infinity War teaser and the Lost World Jurassic Park teaser. It should be noted that this footage was made and released before the film ever even started filming. Although most of these scenes would later be reused and repurposed for Godzilla King of the Monsters, so there's that, and there's not much to mention about the alternate shots. The marketing team probably deliberately changed the footage to hide the Mutos and left them as a surprise for the film itself. I'll also not be mentioning deleted or alternate scenes mentioned in the Godzilla novelization, more specifically Joe's burial at sea, Ford finding his son after the fight, and the alternate deaths of the Mutos, mainly because there's no real proof if these scenes were made or not. So with that out of the way, let's begin. The first scene that was cut is, coincidentally, the opening title sequence in the film. Eagle-eyed fans would probably notice that some of the war footage shown in the opening credits were actually recreated shots. Those shots spliced in with real atomic test footage was originally supposed to be part of a proper opening scene. This is confirmed by the director himself on the Godzilla watch-along and can be seen in the original and early drafts of the screenplay. While seeing this as a proper scene would be cool, I do like the fact how the existing opening credits is almost a staple in the Monsterverse, as this style of credits would be used in later entries. The next few shots take place in the Philippine mines. Extended footage from the Godzilla Declassified special features and further confirmation from the director on the Godzilla watch-along confirmed there were shots cut containing injured and dying miners that were exposed to the radiation pocket. From the one photo that Gareth shared on the watch-along, along with some B-roll footage showing even more miners, they look to be in pretty terrible condition. I can't really express too much about this, mainly due to the limited amount of info and cut shots that I could dig up, but it's safe to assume there was some attention to the miners that got affected by the radiation. Now, the next two shots involve the power plant collapse in Janjira. Nothing much to add, just Joe running through the plant, and an extra shot of some kids running from the school. Like the mine, there isn't much to confirm. There might have been more scenes of people evacuating, but I'm not entirely sure. Now we're getting to our first full deleted scene instead of individual shots. Once Ford returns home from his deployment, there was actually a scene on the airstrip where he's greeted by his family. We see a shot of him lifting his son, and some B-roll footage shows Ellie possibly asking her son if he wanted to hug Ford first.
Are you okay with that? Mommy's getting the first hug.
But in the end, she ends up hugging him. Now, there might have been a moment where there might be some kind of disconnection between Ford and his son, which is understandable since he was off. This would have been a pretty intimate scene to show, trying to get us to care more for the characters. Now, this scene was revealed in the Godzilla watch-along once again. Not a lot of information outside the tweet the director let out. All we know is the scene was indeed shot and possibly edited before it was scrapped. But after Ford talked to Ellie about the situation between him and his father, the scene was originally supposed to cut with him dozing off to kaiju films in the living room. They were confirmed to be Toho films, but weren't specified as to which ones they were exactly. But it was safe to assume they're not Godzilla classics. It is possible he was watching some of the more obscure films like Matango and War of the Gargantuans, or films that are closer to the vein of Godzilla like Rodan and Mothra. I did kind of humor the idea that it was Godzilla films where the title character was cut out, but it's more likely he was watching something that did not contain Godzilla at all. Another show that was cut was a brief interaction between Joe and Ford at the police station.
Been a while.
Nothing much to add to this scene. One can assume Ford is frustrated at his dad because of the stunt he pulled, but other than that, there's nothing much I can really add to it. Now we get a small addition of dialogue in this main scene, as Joe is explaining the situation to Ford as to why he needs to go back to Janjira. There might have been more dialogue cut from this scene, but for now, the only line that I could find that was cut is Joe saying,
I'm not crazy.
How I feel, covering every minute shot that was cut from the moving on. After Ford and Joe get captured by the Monarch operatives, we get a line from him while he's being interrogated. Early marketing for the film has him saying a few more lines than what was shown in the final film.
You are not fooling anybody when you say that what happened was a natural disaster. You're lying. You're hiding something out there. It was not an earthquake. It wasn't a typhoon. This is what caused everything in the first place. Don't you see that? And it is going to send us back to the Stone Age. You have no idea what's coming. God help us all.
After that, we have the Muto hatching, and we get a few deleted or extended shots of the Monarch operatives and Ford reacting to the creature's sudden awakening, such as Zarazawa looking at the presumably dead Spore, a brief shot of Ford stumbling out of the van that he was kept in, ducking under cover, and looking back at the monster before it rises up. But the one shot I really wanted to talk about is this one, where we see Graham and Zarazawa in their containment suits, looking out at something. Given how the scene is lit, it's safe to say they're still in the containment site at night. This shot probably takes place before the Muto hatched or after. It's honestly hard to tell. So there's nothing much I could dig up about this next scene. We only get the 2 shots, but basically, we see Ford in the USS Saratoga, presumably talking to Zarazawa.
Can you kill it?
I believe something can.
I assume this takes place before the boardroom scene for multiple reasons. One, Ford's probably mad at the Monarch operatives, possibly blaming them for not only the death of his father, but his mental state as well, and this would probably make him confront Zarazawa. 2, when Zarazawa says, "I believe something can," would make a great transition into the boardroom scene. I assume both Ford and Zarazawa had a much longer discussion on the matter about the Mutos, but all that's left of this possible conversation are these 2 shots. Now we're getting into some pretty interesting territory when it comes to the deleted scenes, and this is a scene a lot of fans are demanding to be revealed. Once Ford makes his way to Honolulu, he's met up with a familiar face. While there's no recording of this scene available online, but thanks to the Godzilla Art of Destruction book, we at least know of the scene's existence. Ford enters the airport and gets boarded by Akira Takarada. In case you don't know, he's been a recurring actor in the Godzilla series, appearing in multiple Showa films and made brief cameos in the Heisei and Millennium films. Gareth made a note saying he was disappointed this scene had to be cut to conserve runtime. It's pretty disappointing knowing this scene may never see the light of day, especially considering Akira's relationship with the Godzilla franchise. Now the next shot, while brief, is our first deleted shot with Godzilla. Back in 2014, when Legendary was marketing the film, they showcased an early version of Godzilla's arrival to Honolulu. This footage will later be shown at WonderCon and other events. The shot happens between Godzilla pushing the ships aside and when the dog escapes the waves before it reaches him. The shot shows a couple of people in a restaurant completely oblivious of Godzilla's arrival. It makes sense why the shot was cut, mainly due to the fact that those people would have left the area already, considering a few shots before there was emergency alarm that can be heard. But there is a part of me that would like to see this shot fully CG'd and in better quality. This shot is a little less known. After Godzilla and the male Muto made a mess of Honolulu, Goji returns to sea with his own entourage of ships. After this shot, we get this, a beautiful shot of Zarazawa on the USS Saratoga looking at Godzilla as he swims by. You can even see the helicopter that flew over Godzilla in the background from the shot before. I think this is where Zarazawa gets his eureka moment, finally understanding what's going on with Godzilla's sudden appearance right after the Mutos. The exact origins of the screen cap is still unknown to me, but I'm just glad I was able to find this shot again after so long. Now this is another shot we all probably forgot about, but during the female Muto's rampage in Las Vegas, we get a quick shot of the mock-up Statue of Liberty in ruins. Like some of the shots in this video, it's hard to tell where it lands in the overall scene, but we know it was developed enough to be shown in promotional material for the film. This shot was revealed in some of the B-roll footage, where we see Ellie's son, some soldiers and patients looking up at something. I assume this shot happens close to when the bomb makes its way to San Francisco as it flies overhead. One could argue they're looking at the male Muto, but by the time the Muto arrives, Ellie's son would have already been off the bridge, so it's safe to assume they're looking at the nuke flying overhead. Now this next scene we all probably forgot, which is kind of ironic because this was the very first shot shown in the first teaser trailer for the film. The officially released one, by the way. The scene has the Admiral briefing the Halo jumpers of the situation on the nuke and says,
"Gentlemen, you are being sent in by a Halo jump. Deactivate a nuclear warhead. I realize not all of you have had hands-on experience with nuclear ordnance. Frankly, none of us have ever faced a situation quite like this one before. I would not be asking any one of you to take this leap if I did not have complete faith in your ability to succeed. I know many of you have family and loved ones still in the city, and that you want to help them. Well, this is your chance. Your courage will never be more needed than it is today, gentlemen. Remember your training, and you'll be fine."
Now I'm not sure if this scene coincides with the Halo jump scene or takes place sometime after the male Muto nabs the nuke. Now I can't tell if this shot is deleted or not. but we see Ellie looking up at something while slowly backing away. Now this shot could easily been reshot for the film or is a cut shot, can't really tell, but in the same scene we see Ellie running from the male Muto after it lands on a building. The shot extended a bit by focusing on her again after Godzilla has made landfall. She then turns back to the male Muto along with other people, realizing they're in the middle of these two titans. Now throughout the Godzilla vs. Muto sequence, there are actually a fair number of extended shots that added 1, maybe 2 seconds of action per shot. But the one shot I really want to talk about is this one from the Asia trailer, where we see the male Muto fly over some buildings with Godzilla in the background. This shot might have transitioned to this shot where the male Muto latches itself onto Godzilla moments before Godzilla disposes of him. And here we are, the final cut shot. During the Godzilla watch-along, it was revealed that Max Bornstein, one of the main writers of the whole Monsterverse, has a brief cameo at the end of the film. Whilst everyone looks to the screen to see Godzilla wake up, we're supposed to get a shot of Max being one of the injured watching the screen. And that might actually be him in the film. And that's it. That's all I can scratch up in terms of deleted scenes and shots. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you feel I've missed any scenes at all, feel free to comment them down below. I must admit, making this video was a wild ride for me. Hunting down and going through multiple pieces of Godzilla marketing material was tasking but rewarding and very nostalgic. And remembering events back then, the hype, the anticipation, more on that in the card. Now, Godzilla 2014 kinda got a bad rap after its release, but despite the film having mixed reactions from the public, mainly concerning the poor use of Cranston's character and the limited screen time of Godzilla, the film did more good in light of the small issues, and we continue to see the effects it made to this very day. The film alone created the Monsterverse, re-established Godzilla to the general public, spawned a whole new era of Daikaiju films and fans.
We stand here amidst my achievement, not yours!
And is probably the major contributor to the Reiwa era of films being produced. So while we may never get the director's cut in future celebrations for the 2014 film, all the good the film has done is definitely something worth celebrating. Thank you for watching. See you all next time.